Hey everyone, this is John Puritz. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. This show is dedicated to each of us being better in all areas of our lives, mentally, spiritually, physically, and relationally. We want to help you be a better you because when you man up already, the world around you is greatly impacted. Here on the podcast, we don't believe you're an accident. We believe each of us is created for purpose, and this show is dedicated to helping you discover and live out that purpose. Again, welcome to the show, and let's check out another great episode. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome to the Man Up Already podcast. And as always, super excited to have you here with us today. It's going to be a really somewhat emotional, I think, episode on my end because of our guest. This is something that's probably a little bit different than the normal episodes that we tackle here and the conversations that we have. My guest today is my sister, and we have been facing this topic in our family for a long while, and I'm excited to have her. I'm excited for her to share a lot of her story right now, and what she's going through, what our family has dealt with, and bring some awareness to this topic that we are going to address. So without further ado, please welcome my sister, Marnie Reed. All right. So, Googs, welcome to the podcast. I sang your praises in the intro.
Did you?
No.
I hope I can live up to it.
No. But I did share that it was a unique episode that, I was having you on and we're walking, especially you walking through some crazy stuff. So, you had mentioned, hey, we should do a podcast on this. I didn't even mention the title or what this was about. So why don't we dive in there?
Let's do it.
Why don't you tell everybody kind of what you're dealing with, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. I think it's worth mentioning that you and I have gone through this before. So I think it's important to mention that both my brother and I have been through a very, very fast loss of my dad to pancreatic cancer in 2008. We found out that he had the cancer in around Father's Day in June, and he was gone by the 21st of July. And so we were left in complete devastation. But what resulted from that, among many, many things, enormous gifts and much pain, obviously, over the last 16 years, is our family has remained in contact, in very deep contact, in fact, with an organization called PanCan, which was brought into existence by a woman by the name of Julie Fleischman because she lost her dad to pancreatic cancer and started a nonprofit that has just grown into enormous proportions in terms of funding and research. And we, as a family, have always raised money. As a matter of fact, John and I have a sister. When she got married, instead of things to put on the table, she used the money to donate to PanCan. And we've had golf galas that raised thousands of dollars and walks that raised hundreds of dollars. And different people and friends have come and gone, and as part of what we called the Puritz Purple People that we started for my father. So, that support has never gone away completely. In fact, my husband has donated $100 to the Mark Puritz Purple People every year since then.
Well, I didn't know that.
Yeah, nobody does. That was always my birthday present, among a lot of other things, but he always made a donation to PanCan for me. And I have
just to clarify, right? PanCan is the Pancreatic Cancer Action Network.
Sorry, yes. Right. Pancan.org. So, back in 2008, we had no idea. I was like, well, didn't the pancreas look like a leaf? I'm a school teacher, right? So, we're going to draw that as a leaf with the internal parts of the body. And I always worried that I could have passed the gene to my son. So I stayed involved with them, and when it was time and available to me, I got genetically tested, and I always had my doctor looking out for my pancreas. given the GI troubles I've had my whole life. And in the end, it wasn't me who got the cancer. It was my husband. So John knows it's, my husband is 62 years young and has been watched for familial lung cancer for his whole life, definitely more than the 2 and some decades we've been together, as he lost his brother and his father to it before 65, I think. And all of a sudden he had a pain in his side, and he went to the doctor, and lo and behold, he's got the same cancer as our dad did. So stage 2, which is a change, thank God, because he's known what to look for, having been involved with us crazies regarding the pancreas forever. So we're battling that now, waiting for another scan. The first round of chemo didn't do what it should. No metastases, but there's a very major vein in the vicinity that radiation and chemo that is happening every day now is trying to keep at bay until the 14th of next month. So
yeah, it's
what do you say? You just
heavy, right.
Like, you vanquish a monster that you don't expect to come back.
Right. And the fact that, we've talked about this, that you would think that would show up in one of us because of family line, but to have it just, out of the blue, blindside.
Yes.
Russ
and his tumor did not come back genetically predisposing our other son. It's not. He does not have it as a gene. So it's definitely environmental in this case.
Which is interesting. Like what, and I don't expect you to have the answer, right? It's just the questions, but you're so deep involved in this. What causes it? Is there anything to look out for, avoid? One thing that you mentioned, I wrote down, is genetic testing. So let's start there.
That's an important one.
Yeah.
You and I have talked about that because like you said, of my involvement with the Pancreatic Action Network, I as soon as that was available, and I don't know if you know this, but you can go to your doctor and say, I have this, and this in my family. I'd like to have, and you spit in a cup and they send it off. It's that easy.
Wow.
Nobody even has to prick you. So I went for genetic testing when that was available to me. And then now what they have, if you go to the PanCan site, they have something called Know Your Tumor, which wasn't available back in the day. It was just, you got a tumor and it was adenocarcinoma, you're going to die. And as you know, I went to Congress in 2009 with them to lobby for more money for the National Institutes of Health because everybody's dead. I mean, I don't know how many of hopefully few of your listeners will know what it is, and we make them aware, but I hope people didn't go through what we did.
Well, I don't think people understand,
people need to understand is how fast.
Right.
That is the main thing that I think needs to get out there, is because there's no nerve endings in this digestive area, right? You're talking about your liver, your pancreas, your gallbladder, and the beginning of your small intestine, which is called the duodenum, right? Then there's major blood vessels and veins that bring the blood and bile and all the digestive processes that you have. There's no nerve endings in there. So when you feel the pain, it's too late. It's too late. And so typically the survival rate, and I think it came up to 8%, John, since we lost Dad, but it's 5%. It's bad. And while we lost Dad in 5.5 weeks, I know people who have had it less, right? They found out on a Friday and they were gone on Sunday.
Wow.
So I also met 3 ladies in Washington, D.C. at the Capitol building who lost 3 sisters, their mother, and all of the aunts. So the precursor to this, I think people need to know, is it as Ashkenazi Jews, which we are from Jews.
Explain what that is.
Ashkenazi Jews are Jews whose origins come from Eastern Europe. Again, you could be talking about Sephardic Jews, which are a different area, but one of the main things in pancreatic cancer is looking at Ashkenazi Judaism. Smoking, drinking, who doesn't, right? diabetes, because again, it's involved in the liver and the pancreas and the digestive part of it. But also they're getting to know the genetic code of this cancer, which is, and I may be speaking out of turn, but I don't think so. The BRCA1 and BRCA2 gene, which is obviously you've known from breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have somebody who already has that cancer and a first line relative that has that cancer, or someone else like us, we have daddy who had the cancer, but we have both sides of our family with deep diabetic problems in their medical history. You have to get checked. And so with Russ, with my husband, for those who don't know, he went for a checkup mostly because he has me as a wife and he has to, but he was watching his lungs and his heart, but he had a pain in his side. Pain, he just lost 20 something pounds. It's like, now taking Tums and omeprazole and all that digestive stuff just wasn't helping it. So the doctor said, let's just get an ultrasound, which most people will know is very easy. They put some jelly on you and they take their rubber, and there it was. It's that easy, but there's no pre-screening for it. So when you have a tumor, what they do now, to go back to your original question, is they do something, they do genetic testing on it. They want to see what kind of tumor it is, what genetics are involved in there, because there's different strategies to treat those tumors now. And there's more offered to stage 3 and stage 4 people in clinical trials that are really getting down to what is making that tumor live. So it's pretty intense what they're trying to give us, people who are dealing with this cancer, more longevity in their life. Still, if it's operable with something called the Whipple surgery, you're maybe getting 1 to 3 years on an average. So it's not good, but there are people out there who are beating the odds. So it's not impossible. Yeah, I know. Shake your head because it's
I've watched, obviously. So let's talk about Russ, because obviously in a
I'll
podcast,
always be happy to talk about Russ. Yeah.
In a podcast that deals with adversity,
and a good man.
He's unfreaking believable how he has faced this. It's a wind back a little bit. Dad, I always say I learned a lot about living by watching my father die, because of the way he handled that, the way he, it was pretty amazing. Obviously nobody wants to go through that, but I'm watching Russ.
He was graceful.
Yeah. And I'm watching Russ. What was interesting, and this, I think, is, besides obviously bringing awareness to pancreatic cancer and people getting tested and people paying attention to what they consume and put in their bodies, which you and I have spoken about a lot. And I'll add in, stress and all these things, right? That, health, it really is. And I don't, you can't say, well, this is what caused it with Russ. It could just freaking be, but
he worked around chemicals for many, many years. Who's to say that's not
right?
You know what I mean?
Right.
You can't.
And you go down a rabbit hole, right?
Random. You can go down a rabbit hole, exactly. Right.
But what is amazing is his mental attitude. I'm sure instead of you having to talk him off the ledge, he's had to talk you off it.
Oh, no question.
No question. One, I know you because you're my sister, right? But I've watched him just, I'm in awe. I really am.
I asked him, I said, at any point did you go, because it certainly wasn't with me watching, I said, at any point, did you hide from me and lose it? I mean, I don't know where or when he would have done that. And he said, there was about 30 seconds where I thought, oh, why me? He said, and then my mind went, well, why not me? Well, mostly because we dealt with this before. Shouldn't we get a pass? But that's not how it works. You know that. Life is not fair, and nobody ever said that we had forever.
I don't. Here's the thing, Marn. The one thing I've noticed about the two of you, right, in everything that you've dealt with in life and the things that come at us in life, and I can say this certainly about where I'm at in my journey. The one thing that the two of you have done is lived. Like, you
Yeah.
guys have traveled, you guys have done some pretty epic stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, obviously
Yesterday I called my best friend and I had to lose it because I'm not doing that to Russ. I think I told you, because it's just not my depth of sorrow is not for him to carry right now. He's got enough. So I'm trying to keep that. And I call her because she doesn't try to fix anything. She knows I just gotta cry. So I was saying, yes, it's not fair. All those things, that you say when you don't want to lose somebody. But I said to her, I said, but damn, we had such a good time, rolling up on the pyramids in Egypt and floating in the Dead Sea and picking up a flesh-eating drug resistant, bug in North Carolina. We've done a bunch of stuff.
So let's talk about that. You share with us, you guys have been to a lot of places. I don't even know all of them. So where have you guys traveled? So let's back up for a minute.
Yeah.
You guys made a very conscious, because you raised kids, and then you made a very conscious decision to say, this is what we're going to do. When did that happen?
Right.
Like, maybe walk us through that.
So we did in 2008 when Daddy died. I had just turned 40. So that made Russ 45. And the kids were 16, and going on 18. So we were coming up on, because of blended family, we were coming up on the end of what do you call that? I'm blanking. Child support. That was a big chunk.
Yeah.
Right. So my only bucket list was Israel. I wanted to be in Jordan at the wall. And so years before that, probably in 2005, we were sitting in a bar and we had a napkin and we decided to list all the places that we wanted to see, which one year for a gift, he framed them napkin and it's on the mantle. So when Daddy died, and the kids were almost going, all in college, we said, all right, we're going to travel. We're going to do that. So that was the first trip. We went to Israel. And, many people, and I learned this from our oldest son, you see Europe, you kind of can still get your feel for yourself. But once you go in the desert in the Middle East, you're kind of out there. Everybody's like, well, I've seen Aladdin, but, I don't know what's doing in the desert, right? So then we went back to Jordan. We did Egypt. We did 2 times Italy, in 2 different trips in Italy. Where else we went to Peru? So we hiked up in Machu Picchu, Morocco. So we did go to the Casbah, and we can say, yes, I did see the Grand Vizier in the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. And then I went where Aladdin was jumping houses in Morocco. So it was great. And
you rocked the Casbah.
We rocked the Casbah. I was in the Casbah for real, so I have the proof. and I sang it going up like an idiot. Yeah. And but also we've made it a point when COVID hit, we had never been to kind of backwoods North Carolina. And we wanted a place to disappear because we didn't want to be around people. So we rented a cabin in North Carolina and went hiking, and we went canoeing, and we went over falls that we nearly drowned in. And like I said, picked up a drug-resistant bacteria. Oh my gosh. But when we crashed that canoe, when he fished me out of the water, I was laughing myself silly. So when I was talking to my friend yesterday, I said, when I roll up into heaven, I'm going to go, whew, that was such a good time.
Oh, that's so awesome.
A little weepy on that. But yeah, that's the way we see things. We've lived, and every day since August 20th, we have gotten up and lived on what everyone thinks is solid ground and isn't. It's quicksand. Our brains can't take that. So we know we're living on quicksand. We know that even if we're able to have the surgery, we don't have a lot of time. It's defined now. So I'm not sure that's a bad thing. I mean, it's terrible, but it's not a bad thing to know I've got this time with you, whether that be your mother or your kid or whomever. I'm going to love you so hard today, and I'm going to live with you so authentically today that you are going to be so happy that we had this time together. And then when a doctor says, yeah, we're going to do the surgery, you have more time, we're going to go, yes, we have more time, but we still have these on here and we're going to live better. So my husband and Russ and I have made the conscious decision to say, today's our day, every day. Today's our day. And it's kind of wonderful. I'm not going to lie. It's terrible, but it's wonderful.
What are some things have you noticed in your day-to-day that has brought the two of you? Because you're not traveling, right?
Nope.
I mean, you're dealing with doctor visits and chemo and radiation and all that shit. But what has it done, that awareness level, today's our day, in just how you approach life now?
First, we turned off all the TVs, right? Unless we specifically sit down to watch a show, there's no TV on in the house, only music. And we've gotten up early and we sit on the patio and read books and have our coffee instead of passing each other. Even if it's just 20 minutes, we are out on the patio or we're having coffee together. He's on disability and I'm working. So he fired me for driving him to radiation because he doesn't need it. So we were going before 2 Thursdays, every other Thursdays, he had 3.5 hours that he had to be infused with the strongest chemo on the block. So I went to all the little coffee places around that area so that he could see me from the window if he wanted to look out, or he could call me and I could come up or bring him a snack or what have you. And then when that didn't work, obviously, when we got the scan and they said, no, you got to have chemo and radiation every day, I went the first couple of days and then he was like, I can do this myself because he's, like you said, he's amazing. And I thought, what? What do you mean you don't want me to come with you? I wanted to hang on to him as hard as it, but he has to have agency over his own body and his own life. And he probably needs to get away from me sometimes. So dinner every night, obviously we always did anyway, but if his white cells are good, we've met friends for dinner twice, and we've been taking a lot of walks. And, we have Avi the dog. So we've been taking him, like, for example, Avi loves the car. So Russ puts the car seat in the car. And even if he has to go for gas or a couple of things, he'll roll down the top of the car and the windows, and Avi's going to hang out. And Russ is just making it his business to get some sun and some gas and take the dog. And friends, family, silliness for sure. As we were singing on the top of our lungs the other day, one of the 80s songs that we love, and I was doing a dance for him and the dog, and he decided I'm crazy, which is everybody knew anyway. So, but it's about not saying, well, he came home with an attitude today, so that song I had in my head is gone and I'm not going to sing it, or something pissed me off and I'm not in the mood for this. There's no time for not in the mood. There's no time for that. So am I going to hold on to some little thing that happened like I used to? Like everybody does, right? Everybody does that. I had a bad day, or I had this kind of stress that I made of my own division. I don't have time for that anymore. So I'm really conscious about what we're doing and the time that we're in each other's company, so that he knows, much like Daddy did, I am here for the last bit of everything at the end of the world. And I know he would do the same for me. I wish it were me.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously, right? Like, because wrap our head around dealing with things ourselves, but watching the people we care about most.
Especially someone who does it
Right.
gracefully,
Right. Yeah. You said something that that word had come into my reality this year because of just the adversity I'm obviously walking through. And that word is agency. And I had never understood what that was. And so I want to share that with our listeners because I think it's really important. Agency is being able to take control of yourself.
All 360 degrees of that. And
Yeah.
so I didn't always have agency over myself. I allowed others to have it over me when I was young. Russ, in being my partner in this life, allowed me to live out loud. I have agency over every part of my life, as does he. So we've never been in a relationship where we had to be sorry for ourselves in some way. And I think that was important for what I had with Daddy also. Like when we were little, obviously I got in a lot of trouble, of my own making. But at the end of the world, when he said, do we have anything that we have to talk about? I don't. And you can laugh because I know you're thinking of some of the things I did. I know.
I'm thinking of when you fell from grace with me and how shocked I was. I don't know. How old was I? I was like in middle school.
I had to be 14.
Yeah,
So you were
I was
probably
11.
9, right?
If you were 14, I was
No,
10 or 11.
You were 11, yeah.
Yeah. And I remember this
I remember what I did.
shock. Like, so for our listeners, my sister was like you call me the golden child, but back then you were so the golden, like I was just lumped into the shit.
Child.
I was lumped into the crap. I'm sorry, but I was guilty by existence, right? Because of the element around me, right?
Well, because I did everything.
No, you were 3 years removed from me and the step siblings. And so, and I shared this story one time that when we were, in that scenario, to be kind, you kind of were removed. Your room was around the corner.
It's funny you should say that. I was just talking about this yesterday.
Right? Like you were removed and
I was a teenager. I had gone to high school. So we were, like you said, there was a space there of really tangible and intangible space between us at that time. Until we went to Daddy's for the weekend.
And every time we went to Daddy's, right, you and I connected back up. And it was on one of those trips where you fell from grace, right? Like you were
hard too.
I remember like, you're bad. Like, oh my gosh, you lying sack. I remember like at your 11-year-old self going, you lying sack of, but then you just became even greater. You became even greater because of that to me. So funny.
Yeah, but I was always the one who was, getting in trouble and running off and doing things the family dubbed, completely unacceptable.
I think you make that. I maybe later, yes, but during those times, no, because
but everybody was always mad at me because I lived out loud. Everybody was always mad at me.
Yes, that's true. That's very true.
The blame was immediately mine because it was probably the onus was probably due there anyway.
Yeah.
But.
And it's interesting, right? Not to go down this rabbit hole. I'll pick this topic up on the podcast at some point in the future, but you just think about, there's so many things. I guess here's why I think what you're talking about is so incredibly important to the message here is, yes, pancreatic cancer is a shit show, and there needs to be, awareness and all those things, and encouraging people to find out what they can. But when you find out, it's really too late, and it shouldn't get. And I'm sharing this because it's my own story of you've got to find out. Here's my message. You've got to find out what's holding you back personally from doing what you're talking about, living.
That's
right.
The secret.
Right. Correct. And I've learned in my journey this year of, some of the things. I mean, recently, as the last couple of days, I mean, I just had a conversation with our mom and with a list of like laid out, like, all right, here's what it actually and looks like, right? And it has a label. I'm not going to talk about it right now,
Yeah.
but it's my responsibility to tackle the things that hold me back. Because what if that diagnosis comes? Do you, and I've preached about this for years and years and years, do you want to be laying in that bed, knowing that life's over, going, I wish I would have.
John,
And I
I
think
don't
that's the
have
thing.
I
That's the
don't
thing
have
that
that.
gets me right here.
I don't have that. That's why I wish it were me, really, in all sincerity, because I don't have the, I wish I don't. Do I wish I've done a million things differently? Hindsight is really a gift that way.
Sure.
But I have had the privilege of being loved in an enormous capacity, not just by my husband, but by my father and my brother and my son, never mind all the women I know that I treasure in my life. The very, very deep privilege of watching each other live out loud. From being the loud and inventive and creative and annoying and all those adverbs and adjectives that were assigned to me as a kid. My father, my brother, especially after I knocked myself off the pedestal, my son and my husband say, yes, we want you. Yes, we love you. So that my agency, my ability to say, this is who I am, I'm not sorry, allows me to really put my head down. And if I'm lucky enough to have someone else sit by me at the end of the world and say that, I will say the same. Thank you for all of it.
Yeah. Well, the thing I love most is the bond that you and I have had this bond
Forever.
forever.
Since I picked your fingers off the playpen and let you fall.
Yeah, you
and asked mommy to send you back.
Twisted mofo you are. But it's learning in life, and again, you think about your circumstance with Russ, and Russ, what Russ is dealing with, and then I think about what I'm been walking through, and the amount of petty things that we allow to get in the way of the things that actually matter.
I have done it all. And that's why somebody smarter than me told me, you think you're walking on solid ground, but you're not.
Right.
And we can understand that when we're in the moment, like when Daddy was dying. We could understand that, and we tried to do better for so long. But after a while, she said, your brain has to reset to all the minutia that you're dealing with all day, every day, all the outside influences that hurt your feelings or make you sad or stress you out. And we forget to remember, we just lost so-and-so. What are we doing? And we all do it. I think she's right. We have to, because how else? But we can really try. And I know that if I'm left here without him, it's going to be an enormous change of I don't know how I'm going to get out of that. But somebody said to me, you will. You have no choice.
Right.
You're a mother. You have to mother your child. You have to do all those things. And as much as you don't want to, you have to do them, I think, in honor of the people that we lost. How many times have you and I said, would Daddy want that? I don't think so. Would Daddy want us to talk to each other that way? Or Daddy would be so disappointed if we did this. I think it has to remain more top of mind. I really do.
I remember having a conversation with Carolyn. So for our listeners, a family member 2 years ago now, had lost her husband, and they were married a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, they're in their 80s.
Yeah, and I had said to her, it would be disrespectful to the life that he lived for you to crawl into a hole and want to die.
Yes.
It is. It's you
Well,
can't.
you and I knew him well enough. He would be so angry if she did that.
Right. But I think that, first off, the relationship that you and Russ have, we've talked about that, and having that person who loves you unconditionally and sure, like, it is disrespectful to their legacy, because they wouldn't want that when you're living, and I say it all the time. If it's not good enough while we're living, why is it okay when we're gone?
Yes.
Right. You know what I mean? And I deal with that with people in the financial world, right? If you want to provide for somebody today, why does that need go away when you're gone?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it just all kind of, I think what I love about just having you on here is, life it's a very present moment.
It's immediate
thing, right?
Yeah.
It is immediate. And we get I think this is the thing that for me is so difficult to sometimes process, is we spend so much time feeling either guilty or reminiscing about the past. Right. And I did an episode on here about this, that we create this future that typically we're either living in la la land of what could be, right? Or even worse, we're living in fear of what might be.
Yes.
Instead of staying right here, right now, because as you guys have certainly been smacked in the face of, that's all you got.
What I've tried to not do, which I liken it to a superhighway, and my mind never stops. I mean, it's just constant barrage, sleeping, awake. I don't have peace. I have to find it specifically to do that. Is to take all of those voice things, like, what if this happens? What if the doctor doesn't say this? Or what if the doctor, what if a million times, you could see the thought bubbles coming up. None of those things are going to happen. Or maybe all of them are going to happen. But there's no telling when that'll be.
Right.
And so likely what does happen might resemble one of those things or not at all. So all of that wasted time, because we're not doing anything but making ourselves crazy by doing that, right? There's nothing you can fix. There's nothing it's going to rewire. It's not going to do anything. I'm trying to say to myself, stop it. Stop. Because it doesn't have any value. I'm sitting here right now. I'm doing this. I'm present. I'm watching all of the denizens of my yard and my dog making fun of them. And I'm laughing with my husband. And all of those things will wait. Because eventually we're going to be sitting there hearing news. No matter how much I worry about that, I'm not influencing the outcome. So I'm wasting time, and I'm choosing to be present instead.
Are you guys doing anything to share the story publicly, or you just kind of, you know what I mean? Like, I always ask my guests, how can people follow you? Is there something what can people do?
Well, I'll tell you, thank you, because we started an Instagram before this happened, right before Morocco. It's called Marnie's Travel on Instagram, and I think you have the address. Maybe I don't know if there's anything that you can put that on in the text underneath.
Yeah.
But also, it was published. I wrote about what happened with Daddy and pancreatic cancer. So I've started a standalone book about this whole thing that obviously is not coming out. And I just started it because it's like Alien, that thing when it bursts out. It's like I just had to start writing, because nobody would believe this, really. Nobody would. We just looked at each other when we found out and thought, the same monster? What? Right? It's like somebody coming in your house, right? You get a bat, beat him out. You do what you got to do. Shut the door. Police arrest him. He's done. And then he's back at the door. What? So that's Marnie's Travel is now about living now, as opposed to all of the beautiful pictures from all over the world that we were posting. That's what you'll find there for now. And I'm sure at some point it'll change. And Russ was ready to blog about, I mean, we had a website up and everything, and that we've put on hold until when he's stable and he can ring the I'm cancer free bell, Monica's Travel will go back to the adventures of the around the world, because we'll be heading back to Egypt immediately. That's the plan.
Yeah.
Is because the Grand Museum wasn't open when we were there, and it should be soon. It's been, but Russ said to me, he's like, well, we'll have to see what the political, situation is. And I looked at him and I go, this is pancreatic cancer. When it's over, you're going to shout it at the pyramids. And that's the end of that. We're going. Done.
Love it.
Yeah.
Well,
thank you for having me on, though.
Yeah, it was an honor. I love you
Myself
dearly.
too. I agree.
I know you know that. I say that in private all the time, but I'll say it publicly here, right? I love you
I love
very
you,
much.
kid. I love you.